Welcome back to NT Coins World, your go-to place for all things numismatic. Today we have two incredible Kennedy half-dollar coins to dive into. These coins, while sharing the same denomination, each have their own unique story to tell. One is a 1972 D Kennedy half-dollar, and the other is a 1977 Kennedy half-dollar. Both coins are in fine condition, which gives us an excellent opportunity to explore their historical significance, mintage, errors, varieties, and of course, their current market value. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. First up, we have the 1972 D Kennedy half-dollar. The Kennedy half-dollar series, first introduced in 1964, has always been a popular and highly collected series among numismatists, largely due to its connection to President John F. Kennedy. The 1972 D in particular carries a certain level of historical importance, even though it wasn't produced during the peak of silver's presence in these coins. This coin was struck at the Denver Mint, which is denoted by the D Mint mark. The 1972 D Kennedy half-dollar is particularly interesting because it was part of a significant increase in mintage numbers during the early 1970s. In fact, over 125 million of these coins were struck in 1972 alone, making the 1972 D a relatively common coin in circulation. But while these coins were mass-produced, their value isn't solely determined by their mintage numbers. In fine condition, this coin offers an interesting blend of accessibility and historical appeal. In fine condition, the coin is characterized by moderate wear, but the key details on the obverse, such as the features of President Kennedy's face and the inscription Liberty, are still clearly visible. The reverse, showcasing the eagle and shield, is similarly worn but still distinguishable. In the case of the 1972 D, the details remain important because they impact the overall aesthetic and value of the coin. Despite the wear, this coin is still a fantastic representation of mid-20th century US coinage. Now, when it comes to value, the 1972 D Kennedy half-dollar in fine condition isn't exactly a rare gem. With such high mintage numbers, you can typically expect it to be valued at around $6 to $10. However, this doesn't mean the coin isn't worthy of attention. If you happen to find one with unique characteristics or even certain errors, the value could certainly increase. For example, if you find a 1972 D with a double die obverse, which is a type of error where the design is doubled, the value could jump significantly. A double die obverse Kennedy half-dollar could fetch anywhere between $50 and $200, depending on its condition and how obvious the error is. Another factor that can influence the coin's value is its overall scarcity. While millions were minted, coins that were saved from circulation or preserved in better condition can carry a premium. Additionally, collectors are always on the lookout for coins with attractive toning or those in uncirculated condition. So if you happen to own one of these in fine condition, it's still a good idea to keep it in a safe place and monitor any increases in its market value. Now let's transition to another Kennedy half-dollar that carries its own unique features and is part of the same beloved series, the 1977 Kennedy half-dollar. Moving on, we come to the 1977 Kennedy half-dollar, another fascinating coin from the series. By this time, the US Mint had fully transitioned from the use of 90% silver to a copper-nickel composition in the Kennedy half-dollars, so the 1977 coin contains no silver. This shift was due to the rising cost of silver and was implemented to make coin production more economically feasible. The 1977 Kennedy half-dollar is often considered to be an emblem of this shift in the US coinage system, though it is often overshadowed by the more well-known silver issues from the 1960s earlier years. Struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, the 1977 Kennedy half-dollar with the D Mint mark, which we are focusing on today, is part of a mintage of over 70 million coins. Though fewer than the 1972 D, this mintage number is still high enough that the coin is not considered scarce. However, as we know in the world of numismatics, high mintage doesn't necessarily equate to low value, especially when you consider factors like condition, rarity, and potential errors. In fine condition, the 1977 D Kennedy half dollar shows noticeable wear, but key design elements remain recognizable. The obverse still retains the basic likeness of President Kennedy, and you can make out the inscription "In God We Trust" around the rim. The reverse, with the eagle and shield design, similarly holds up well enough to be distinguishable, although you may notice some flattening in the finer details due to wear. Collectors who are into Kennedy half dollars will appreciate the fine condition of this coin because it represents an important era in US coinage and holds a direct connection to the legacy of President Kennedy. Now, when it comes to the value of a 1977 D Kennedy half dollar in fine condition, it generally holds a similar value to the 1972 D. This coin can typically be found for anywhere between $5 and $12 depending on where you purchase it. While this may not seem like a massive amount of money, keep in mind that some coins may experience an increase in value based on factors like demand and condition. If you find one with minimal wear, or better yet, a higher grade coin, its value could push higher than what is typically expected for a fine condition example. In terms of errors, the 1977 D Kennedy half dollar doesn't have the same prominent varieties as some other years in the series. However, there are still potential opportunities for those who hunt for minting flaws. For example, a double die error or a repunched mint mark error could increase the value of this coin. Depending on the severity and clarity of the error, you could see prices rising into the $100 to $500 range. Though these error coins are relatively rare, they do exist, and they offer a fantastic opportunity for collectors who are specifically interested in finding unique specimens within the Kennedy half dollar series. Like the 1972 D, the 1977 D Kennedy half dollar is another example of a coin that may not be inherently valuable due to high mintage numbers, but its historical importance and connection to the broader Kennedy legacy make it an essential piece for collectors. Even in fine condition, this coin holds its place in the pantheon of US coinage. As we wrap up our look at these two Kennedy half dollar coins, we see that while the 1972 D and 1977 Kennedy half dollars are far from rare, they still carry significant historical weight. The fine condition examples of these coins allow us to appreciate the craftsmanship and artistry involved in their production, as well as the social and political context of their creation. While both of these coins aren't worth thousands of dollars in their current condition, they are still worth keeping an eye on, especially if you're a collector who appreciates the history behind each piece. Whether you're looking for a 1972 D Kennedy half dollar or a 1977 Kennedy half dollar, it's essential to keep in mind the overall market trends, potential errors, and the value of preservation. Always check for any unusual characteristics that could set a coin apart and raise its market value, and most importantly, continue to enjoy the fascinating world of numismatics. Coins like these are not just currency, they are pieces of history. Thanks for tuning in to NT Coins World. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update on the world of coins. And, as always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. Happy collecting!